Hey, you're there. If you like the content I bring, your help is essential. For the channel to remain active and grow more and more, I need your support. Each new follower is a huge incentive to continue creating exciting stories and videos full of fun and adventures. Also, by subscribing, you help me convert this passion into sustainable work, which allows me to offer you even more surprising content. As soon as you don't forget to subscribe, please like and share. Your participation makes all the difference. It all started on a normal Sunday afternoon when Clara believed she was living the prime of her life. Her eyes shone as she prepared Daniel's favorite dinner, the man she had given up everything for. The house smelled of spices and promises. The wine was at just the right temperature, but on the other side of town, Daniel was smiling in another lap. Clara didn't know it, but at that moment, her perfect life was starting to fall apart. While she was setting the table, he was typing a message. "It won't be possible today, love. I had an unexpected event with a client." Clara smiled, understanding. She had always believed every word he said. Blinded by love, she didn't see the signs, the prolonged absences, the cold smiles, the touch that grew cold. With each lie, Daniel built a wall between them, and Clara, without realizing it, was building the foundations of her own pain. The following days were a series of silences. Daniel avoided contact, saying he was overwhelmed. Clara, worried, tried not to suffocate, but the restlessness grew in her chest. One day, she decided to surprise him. She arrived at his office with coffee and a shy smile, but he wasn't there. The receptionist hesitated, but ended up revealing Daniel went out to lunch with Mariana. Mariana, his ex, the one he said he no longer had contact with. Clara's floor shook. She left there in silence, her heart in pieces, but still wanting to believe that it was all a misunderstanding. When Daniel arrived home, she asked him. He lied. He said it was an informal meeting, that she was making things up. And then Clara did something she had never done before. She remained silent. But in that silence, the first crack was born in the submissive woman he had molded for years. That night, Clara didn't sleep. She tossed and turned in bed, trying to understand how she had become so small in her own relationship. She spent hours looking at photos, remembering how their love had begun, pure, light, intense. But now everything was heavy. The next day, like someone who decides to survive, Clara discreetly followed Daniel. What she found left no doubt. He and Mariana holding hands, entering a hotel. The sight tore her apart inside. She went home with her stomach in knots, her face covered in tears. That night, she didn't cry anymore. For the first time, she felt anger, a silent, cold fury that burned slowly. She wasn't going to beg or humiliate herself. Something inside her had awakened, something Daniel had never imagined existed. Clara began to plan her exit in secret. She sold some jewelry, opened a separate account, and began to save money. While he believed he still controlled her, she sewed up her freedom with every penny she had hidden. She went back to college to study psychology, which she had been put on hold for years due to lack of time that Daniel said she should dedicate to her home. Soon she began to do an internship. Even though she was exhausted, she felt alive. But Daniel noticed the change. He began to question, complain, and threaten. His mask of a kind man began to slip. One night, during an argument, he pushed her. Clara fell, not on the floor, but in reality. There, she understood that she needed to leave, and fast. The following week, Clara left home while Daniel was away. She left only a letter. "Keep the house. I'll keep my peace." She moved into a small rental apartment with worn furniture and cold walls, but there she felt free. For the first time, she could breathe without fear. Daniel called, texted, yelled, begged. Then he threatened. He said he was going to break up with her. But Clara didn't respond. She cut all ties. The pain was still a monster inside her, but now she knew she would survive. And more than that, she would flourish. In the hallways of college, she met old friends again, people who reminded her of the Clara of before, the one who dreamed of being a therapist and changing the world with empathy. Time passed slowly. The nights were lonely, the days filled with work and study, but each small step forward was a victory. She got a scholarship, published an article, and had her first session as an intern. With each hurting woman she saw herself, and with each story, she grew stronger. One day, she met Daniel again. He was older, dejected, his eyes tired. He said he regretted it, that Mariana had betrayed him too. He wanted to talk, to try again. Clara looked at him, with a mix of pity and distance. She replied with a slight smile, "Thank you, but today I am all alone." And she left with her shoulders held high, leaving behind not only Daniel, but the woman who once believed he was everything she deserved. Clara began giving lectures on abusive relationships, telling her story with courage. At first, she was trembling. Then, she learned to transform pain into strength. Her social media grew, and invitations poured in. A publisher became interested in her diary, which was turned into a book. Letters to Myself became a success. People saw themselves in her. Women of all ages cried, thanked her, and felt seen. And so, Clara realized that her pain, which had previously embarrassed her, was now fuel for healing. Her name became synonymous with overcoming. But even with her success, she never forgot where she came from. She continued to live in the same simple apartment and still liked to cook alone on Sundays, now for herself. Daniel tried to keep in touch, sometimes sending flowers and messages of longing. But Clara was no longer shaken. She understood that some scars need to remain visible so they can never be opened again. A new man appeared in her life, kind, sincere, and most importantly, unhurried. But Clara took it slow. She had learned through tears and losses that healthy love is not about rushing. It is a daily choice. He respected her time, her freedom, her silences. Clara, for the first time, was not desperate to be loved. She was at peace, and that was revolutionary. The woman who had been betrayed, humiliated, and silenced was now teaching others to stand up, to see themselves beyond the lies they had once accepted as truth. The book became a documentary. Clara was invited to participate in an international conference on emotional violence. There, in front of hundreds of people, she told her story with the same calmness with which she drinks her coffee today. People cried. They gave her a standing ovation. She was no longer just Clara, she was a symbol. But when she left the stage, alone in her dressing room, she looked at herself in the mirror and smiled. Not because of recognition, but because she knew she had survived, that she had overcome her fear, that she had transformed her pain into purpose, and that above all, she would never again let anyone diminish her. The Clara of today carries the girl who cried in the dark, but now they both walk hand in hand toward the light. The past still knocked on her door from time to time in confusing dreams or memories that appeared out of nowhere. But Clara already knew how to deal with it. She no longer ran away from what she had experienced. She embraced her history as part of who she had become. The Daniel of today was just a name among so many lessons. She never heard from Mariana again. And honestly, she didn't miss her. Her focus now was on the present, the women who crossed her path, the books she would still write, the lives she would still touch. Clara had become an expert in starting over. Her pain became a bridge, her story a beacon, and no one could take that away. At the opening of her support center for victims of toxic relationships, Clara saw in the eyes of the other women the same light that had once faded in her. Tears flowed, but now they were tears of relief. She walked between the rooms of the new space and felt something profound: belonging. All of this was the result of her courage. At that moment, she understood the cycle that had ended. It wasn't about revenge, it was about rebuilding, about teaching that love should never hurt, and about remembering every day that no one deserves to live in fear. Years later, Clara released her autobiography. The dedication read, "To all those who thought they couldn't handle it, and did." The launch was a success. She received letters from all over Brazil: mothers, daughters, young people, old people. They all had a story, and they all saw hope in Clara, a mirror, and she welcomed each one with the empathy of someone who had experienced it firsthand, of someone who had fallen but gotten up. Clara wasn't perfect, nor did she pretend to be, but she was true, and that, in a world of appearances, was her greatest strength. One night, after arriving home from another lecture, Clara sat on the couch with a glass of wine. She looked out the window and felt the silence fill the room. A good silence, a silence that, some time ago, she would have interpreted as loneliness. But now it was peace. She lit a scented candle, put on some soft music and let herself relax. The woman who had previously given herself to the point of bleeding now knew how to set limits. She knew how to say no. She knew how to choose herself. And that was her greatest victory. Clara understood that freedom has a price, but it is worth every step. One day, she met one of the first patients she had seen during her internship. She had changed. She smiled firmly and talked about her plans to open her own business. She said, "You were the one who taught me that I deserved more." Clara smiled back, and in that moment, she understood everything. The pain she had experienced had not been in vain. She was a seed. She had germinated other cures, and she would continue to flourish wherever she went. The love that Clara had sought so much outside of herself now overflowed from within. She no longer needed anyone to feel whole, because after all, she was. And so, Clara closed another chapter, not of pain, but of transformation. She knew that there would still be difficult days, but she also knew that she would never lose herself again, because the woman who once kept quiet now spoke for many. The one who was betrayed was now an example of courage. The one who was left was now a reference for starting over. And whoever dared to cross her path with lies would find a strong, aware woman full of self-love. Clara didn't just survive. Clara won.